You say hello. You say hello.
I say hello. Okay,
yes.
I say hello.
I'm going to walk in. I'm going to walk in.
You're gonna walk in. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So
that's your new bit now, huh?
That's my new
after
bit.
you've
Like
done
5,
this in the. Okay.
4.
Welcome to another episode of Talking Kotlin, everybody. It's good to be back. And
You wanted to do this without me, didn't you? You actually wanted to start without me.
I tried. No.
Hi,
Hadi.
everyone. I'm here as well.
Welcome, Hadi. Can I just say real quick, great Ktor 2.0 presentation just the other day. I know that's not going to line up time-wise for our viewers, but still very excited about Ktor 2.0.
Thank you very much. And for those folks that haven't seen that, I've got a new tactic now. I just walk in all the time. That's why I was walking in here, right? I was just walking in.
Yeah.
And
the new move.
And actually, I've been thinking, Seb, I think that maybe we drop the whole weather stuff, and every time we enter at different angles. So one time I'll like hang from the ceiling and start coming down, right? And then if you think about it, if each of us do these things, as I was saying, imagine all the combinations of us coming into the picture coming into the frame from different angles. First you, then me, then combine, then in one order. We could do at least like another 50 shows. And
That's
then we
amazing.
would think about a different thing to start off the shows with.
Yeah, and I think you hanging from like a harness would also make a great thumbnail picture for YouTube. I'm sure people are going to click that for certain.
No, I totally imagine myself over one of these wrecking balls, just like swinging coming in.
Again, I think that would be a great picture.
It totally
Anyway.
would be. Yes. What are we doing today, Seb?
Today we're talking to Victor Kropp from the Toolbox team. Welcome, Victor.
Hi, Seb. Hi, Hadi. It's nice to be here. Thanks.
Hey, Victor. So just for folks that don't know, the Toolbox team is a team at JetBrains that makes the JetBrains Toolbox, which for folks that do not know is an application that we have, not to be confused with the All Products Pack. And for folks that don't know, JetBrains, yeah, we make developer tools and Kotlin. What's
Right.
it?
Okay, great. Okay, I guess this is Talking Toolbox with Hadi now. Okay. That was, I think that Hadi, good job. I think that was very confusing. Victor, maybe you want to take us a little bit about, maybe you want to take us through what the Toolbox app is and what it does and maybe why people should download it.
Toolbox is a small application that we envision as a single entry point for development. So if you want to start programming, you open Toolbox, and then first you can download your favorite IDE, like IntelliJ if you are doing Kotlin. And also you have a list of all your projects right there. You can open them in a single click and just start working. And if a new version of IntelliJ is released, it can be installed automatically by Toolbox. It will show you a notification, and without much interruption, you can continue your work, and you shouldn't care anymore about this routine stuff of updating your IDE, keeping it safe, and getting all the new features. Toolbox will do it for you.
Can I just say on this topic, by the way, just from me personally, thank you so much for building Toolbox, because I still remember times, I mean, people don't believe it when I tell them now, but there was a time where sometimes the tooling around Kotlin JS was a little bit flaky. And I had situations where I was standing in front of a crowd already on stage, and I realized, the new version of IntelliJ that I updated to for some reason doesn't really work with the demo that I wanted to show off. And having the ability to go into Toolbox and say roll back to previous version within like a couple of seconds without having to completely download another binary, that saved my that saved my butt a couple of times for sure.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say, I remember the times when I used to have to go to a website and download stuff. I'm like, I remember the times when I used to wait for a weekly magazine that would give me a CD of my latest version of software to get access to. But talking about having built this, yes, Victor, thank you for building it. Can you tell us briefly the history of how Toolbox came about? Because it does have an interesting background, right?
Yeah, exactly. There were times when you need to go to the website and download a fresh copy manually and then, I don't know, install, unpack it somewhere. And we did it too. And a lot of people did it, and we were tired of it. And then we have an internal hackathon here at JetBrains. Every year, everyone at the company can build anything. You just have a fixed time frame of 48 hours. And we were a group of 6 back in 2015. We decided that we want to automate this process, downloading and updating our IDEs. And just like that, in 2 days, we built the very first version of Toolbox that already could do its job to download and update IDEs. And then we introduced this tool to JetBrains, to our colleagues, and they liked it. And we continue working on it. And like in a year, in October 2016, as if I remember correctly, we released it to the public. And since then, we already have 1 million monthly active users. And I think that's quite a good number.
October 2016. So folks to remember the date is also when Donald Trump got elected. Was it around then or not? Just to yeah.
Maybe when the Kotlin was released, I guess it was.
Oh yeah, well that's closer.
At the
Yeah,
same
I
time
guess
frame.
that's a better association with it.
Right.
Anyway.
So yeah, and at that time, what kind of tech stack did you use for Toolbox?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. We started in 2015, and in 2015, the development landscape was quite different. So, for example, Kotlin was not released yet. Neither was Java 9 with modules. So, if we gonna use a JVM stack for a cross-platform application, we would need either to ask folks install JVM, Java runtime, on their machine, or to bundle it with the application, and it would enormously increase the size of the distribution. Back in those days, even our IDEs did not ship the Java runtime with them. They relied on what installed on the user's computer. So this wasn't a choice for us. So we started to look at another cross-platform options, because we wanted to support all 3 major desktop operating systems. And what we had Electron and JavaScript, but we were not keen to implement everything in JavaScript. And the only other option for us was C++, because, well, it's cross-platform, very well supported. There are a lot of libraries to help us to build application. And yeah, that's what we chose. But for UI, we actually decided to go with an embedded web browser. That was a hot thing at that time, and it allowed us to build a very nicely looking, beautiful interface in just 48 hours during the hackathon. So we worked with this stack with C++ for business logic and JavaScript, HTML, CSS with the React for the UI for quite some time.
Now that's something you don't hear often. We use C++ for business logic. I mean, not lately anyway. Right. So
yeah, and that's exactly what's the problem, because it was hard to develop the application in C++. It was hard to find new developers for the team, because there are a lot of great C++ developers out there, but they are not really interested in such kind of applications. When you speak C++, you speak about high performance, whatever. We have a lot of folks writing C++ at JetBrains, but they do performance profilers where they operate gigabytes of data per second, I don't know, or Java runtime, which is again about performance.
So regarding the UI, why didn't you use a library such as Qt or Qt? It's pronounced Qt, right?
Yep. Qt, yeah, exactly. Qt. We did use Qt for business logic, for operating with I don't know, JSONs, and we use Qt Web Engine, their implementation, their implementation of Chromium and WebKit built into Qt. Regarding the interface to use Qt for actual widgets, it wasn't looking nice. And it wasn't native on any platform. So when we are talking about user interfaces, I think there are two major directions where you can go. You can either build a fully native application that is designed and developed for a specific operating system, be it desktop or mobile, and using all the native stuff, and then it will look great, but only on a single platform. And then you need to repeat this exercise 2 more times, for example, for different desktops. And the other direction is to go cross-platform. And in this case, the Qt approach, where they try to mimic the UI of a particular operating systems, this looks kind of strange. You always, even if you don't know what's wrong, you always notice that this is something different. This is not this is not native.
Yeah.
And the other option, you just go and create your own UI, and we see it every day on websites. All websites have different buttons. There were times where they used kind of native buttons and all links were blue and underlined, but that's not the case
good
nowadays.
Old days. It was nice, simple, beautiful, fast, performant without having to use C++.
But even now, when each and every website has a button of a different shape and links of different colors, you still can recognize them quite good. So this is not a problem that they look different. If they work fast and predictable and the overall UI and the user experience is good, then you don't really mind having a button of a different color or form.
So just as a short follow-up question on this, I'm not sure if you've actually mentioned it, for the web front-end, quote-unquote, that you're running inside of Toolbox at that time, what kind of frameworks were you looking at there, or libraries?
We were using React, and we already had a rich UI library built on React. It's called Ring UI, and it is used in our web team tools like TeamCity and UTrack and AppSource back in those days. So we could easily adapt this library to our needs in Toolbox, so it looked familiar to our team tools.
So this is as a segue. I'm really good at segues. Seb knows this. And as a segue, are those plants false or real plants behind you?
These are real plants. Yeah.
Okay, great. So that brings us into the topic of this is not talking Toolbox, as Seb wanted to point out. This is talking Kotlin. Seb, you seem confused.
No, I'm amazed. I'm amazed by your ability to
segue, right? I should actually walk in on a segue. I should just be floating like this on a segue all the time. You know the segways? No.
I'm especially amazed by you relying on visual gags in a show that people probably also listen to on their commute. So there's
Yes.
a couple of plants behind Victor, ladies and gentlemen, who are not watching but just listening.
Yeah, there's a plant behind me as well, which, by the way, Nafil noticed, and he said, "Hey, I love how your decor is improving day by day." I'm like, "Thank you, finally, someone said it." Anyway, coming back to talking Kotlin, why are we even here? Like, we're not talking Toolbox.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, as I said, we have troubles improving the app written in C++ because, to be honest, we were not good C++ developers, and it was hard for us to find the colleagues. And also it prevented contribution from other teams. So at some point of time, we decided that we want to migrate the application from C++ to Kotlin. At that time, it was possible to cut down the Java runtime into very small distributable and to bundle it with the application without much added size. And developing in Kotlin is much more is much easier and brings more pleasure for us. And it allowed people from different teams inside JetBrains help us with integrations with their products. It allowed us to reuse a lot of code written in our company, for example. Project search in Toolbox uses exactly the same code that you use in search everywhere in our IDEs. It all was not possible with the C++. So we first started with migrating from C++ to Kotlin for business logic, but then we also migrated our UI from JavaScript and React to Kotlin.
So let's take it step by step. Let's talk about the business logic. Can you give us a little bit an idea of how you did it? Because obviously, when you're migrating a Java application to Kotlin, it's fairly simple. It's not fairly simple, but you don't have to start from scratch. You can just mix and match Kotlin. How did you go about that with Toolbox? Basically, I assume you were rewriting it in Kotlin. How did you make sure that all of the functionality was there? How did you how did you effectively do it? Did you have a list of classes and you started to map them over, or did you have a list of features and you started to map them over? How was it?
We took our header files from C++. If you ever wrote C++, you know that you have a header file where you put all the definitions, and then another file where you put all the implementations. So we took header files, and effectively with the sophisticated regular expression, we converted them to Kotlin.
Okay.
Just like that. So all method implementations were marked as to do. This is a function from Kotlin standard library that returns nothing, but it was compiling. Yeah, so we converted everything, and it compiled successfully. It didn't work, obviously.
Minor little detail, but hey,
yeah. So we start implementing methods one by one. Sometimes we were able just to copy paste C++ code to IntelliJ, and IntelliJ thought that it was a Java code and converted it to Kotlin with a built-in functionality. It worked. We converted all the tests in the same way. So yeah, in a few months we had a working application migrated from C++ to Kotlin as is, I would say.
And then they say that regular expressions aren't useful. Look at that. They're amazing.
Yeah. Still, there were some problems with the third-party libraries. So you can be sure that your code works, and you see your code, and everything we wrote worked as intended. But nowadays, every application relies on a huge amount of third-party code. And this is when the things got complicated. Because even though those libraries may have a similar purpose, like, I don't know, parsing JSON, showing a tray icon, minibar icon, or showing a notification in your operating system, whatever. They have a similar purpose, but they have different APIs, they have different issues in their behavior or error handling or whatever. And then we spent quite a lot of time on getting everything right, adapting to new libraries and so on.
And at that point, your user interface was still your web-based React UI?
Yeah, right. We didn't change a line of code in the interface. For the interface part of our application, it was absolutely transparent migration. They interact with each other, business logic and UI, with the tons of JSONs we send back and forth. And yeah, that was an issue why we then wanted to migrate user interface to Kotlin 2 somehow. Because first of all, when you send a lot of JSONs back and forth, it takes a lot of resources to parse and to serialize, deserialize this. And it all happens in this single process. So this kind of insane. And the waste of resources and everything. And also, when we developed every new feature, it was quite complicated process. So maybe for web developers, full stack developers, they are already used to it, where you need to implement part of the feature in JavaScript in UI, then an intermediate layer of data transfer objects to pass the data back and forth, and finally business logic on the server side. But for us, it was quite difficult. For every new minor feature, we need to talk to another developer, because developers working on Kotlin part and business logic and developer working on the UI were two different people, and they didn't know how to do the other part. Resource consumption by the browser was also a very important part. Since 2015, the web engine, Chromium web browser, only get bigger and bigger, and features like video streaming and PDF support, these kind of features we do not need in Toolbox app, but they are bundled. And Chromium engine was never supposed to be modular. It was always a monolith, binary, and yeah, we need to bundle every new version, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger.
But you just gave me a brilliant idea, right? Now,
what?
Hold on a second, okay?
Yeah.
I click on the Toolbox app, right? I get the drop down. You following me? I see all of my tools. I scroll down. I see all of the installed tools, right? I see another tab that says watch, and you click on it, and you get us. You get Seb, you get me, you get the developer advocates, you get a whole bunch of people teaching you about the tools. Of course you need video streaming. It's the thing. And if you could integrate TikTok with it, even better, right? Because we're all going TikTok. Yeah, there you go. You can thank me for the idea later. What version are you at right now of Toolbox?
We are at version 121, maybe by the time we release this episode, it will be 122.
Okay, so that's going to be version 2.0, the big change, right? You can watch,
Okay.
not only program. I love it. I love it. And then you can go
I'll
like
invite you to our planning session.
Absolutely. And then we could also go down the Tesla route as well, right? And there's a button that says, entertainment, and then you could like broadcast Netflix from JetBrains Toolbox.
Okay, but now the question is, well, I mean, this is the alternative timeline, right? Where Toolbox would have stuck with a Chromium engine and had the whole browser always shipped and be a little bit bloated, but at the ability of showing
streaming me, baby.
Yeah,
streaming me.
streaming Hadi live to your desktop. So, but how did it actually turn out? Because you said you moved to Kotlin as well for the user interface.
In the late summer of 2020, Nikolai Gotti from the Compose team at JetBrains approached me with a question whether we want to try their new development, Compose for desktop, which wasn't announced at the moment. And I said, yeah, we at that time we were looking for a different way to do our UI, and that seemed to be a good option for us because it ticks all the boxes. It is Kotlin, so we can finally have all parts of our application in the same language and in the same process, and it will greatly simplify the interaction between them and development. Without you don't need to switch focus. And they promised that it would be very performant because it was using for rendering it was using a native library, and for the UI the Compose framework is quite good in terms of performance. So we gave it a try. So it started like an example application. We tried to build some things looking similar to Toolbox, just as a separate project. And as the very early adopters, we faced a lot of issues. So like we are using SVG images for all our icons. It was not supported at that time in Compose. Many things like pop-ups, menus, things that you are used to have in desktop application, they were not supported. But the team was very helpful. They listened to all our feedback and they implemented everything very quickly. They helped us a lot.
When did you start with this? I mean, when did you actually start this effort? Because you said that they came to you around summer. So what was it, like October, November or so?
Yeah, we had some tests, but actually we started converting the application in February 2021, and we released this new version in July. So it took us
that's not bad.
Like 6 months, and we also implemented some new functionality in UI as well. And I think we probably it would took us much more time when we were using the previous approach.
So one thing that you mentioned early on about your choice of going with something like C++ was that you didn't have to want to depend on the runtime, right?
Yeah.
And for folks, to be clear, Compose for desktop right now runs on the JVM. And the conversion that you did from C++ to Kotlin was Kotlin targeting the JVM, correct? It wasn't Kotlin targeting native. So how did you solve the runtime issue?
So since Java 9 and Java Runtime 9, the Java is modular, and there is a tool called JLink that can cut down the size of the distribution quite significantly if you only need a few parts of it. So we just cut it down to like, I don't know, 20 or 30 megabytes, I think, for the whole Java runtime, and it's not that much, I would say. So the Chromium engine is bigger,
right? But that doesn't produce an executable, right? That still produces a jar or a Java image that then you need the JVM to run it on, right? But it's self-contained, what you're saying.
Yes. In the newer versions of JDK, there is a tool called JPackage that could create a launcher for you. But we created our native launcher. That's the last part of C++ code in our application. It's few files that effectively loads the JVM into memory and provides it with a list of jars and calls the entry function, which like usually have a main function. We have some different function, but it acts effectively like main function. So this was not a big problem. You can find tutorials how to load the JVM in your native application quite easily.
So, what was the main reason, in your opinion, that you did not like directly go with Kotlin native when you made the transition on the back end, right? Because I assume that when you only transitioned your business logic, I think it would be reasonable to say, hey, we want similar performance, so we'll still go to something that compiles natively. And you probably didn't even imagine at that point that there would be some kind of new UI framework for the JVM on the horizon.
Well, it is a myth that Java is not performant. Java is very performant. So performance is not an issue for Kotlin on JVM. And why didn't we go with the Kotlin native? Well, Kotlin native is not very stable, I would say. We maybe need to cut this. But
oh no! What do you need to cut? This is the best part. This is what we live for.
Yeah.
This is steak. This is, in fact, we should make the trailer, like the teaser, like, well, Kotlin native is not very performant. That should be the teaser. Okay, sorry, continue.
No, I wanted to say it's not very stable. So
stable.
There are a lot of issues with the Kotlin native still. So, for example, coroutines, memory model. They are doing a great job and they are solving all those issues one by one. But for us, it's not yet there to try it. And also, the very important part is the third-party libraries again. We cannot implement everything ourselves, and with JVM, we have a lot of choice of what to use when we need some functionality. With Kotlin native, it's much more complicated.
But what about C? I mean, the whole promise of interoping with C. I mean, I'm not talking about interoping with C++, because even Bjorn Storso was saying that C++ can't interop with C++. But what about C?
Yeah, you can. I tried it. It works, but it's not the same, and it requires much more effort than just putting another dependency in your build Gradle file.
Which nowadays is actually kind of scary. Yes, Seb, right? Or your NPMs. You don't know what you're going to pull in. At least with C, you know what you're pulling in. With NPM, it's like, oh, well, if someone hasn't hijacked the account and pushed something bad, yeah.
So, but speaking of dependencies, are there any particular libraries that really kind of helped you, or where you said like, oh, this was much easier to do now that we're in Kotlin versus your C++ and JavaScript implementations beforehand?
Yeah, things like the libraries that were already used in IntelliJ, which we were able just to put in and profit from the years of experience of our colleagues, like searching, some integrations like this is very desktop stuff, but we need to work with proxy servers. We have a lot of enterprise customers that have proxy servers set up in their environments, and detecting them, for example, that's what we've got with the JVM. And the whole Kotlin ecosystem. So we actively use coroutines, Kotlin X serialization, and compose, as I said.
I just wanted to ask one more kind of follow-up question in regards to compose and compose for desktop, because I would assume, or at least from my perspective, it was kind of an interesting transition coming from a React background, because for me it was like, hey, all of this feels kind of familiar. I just get to write Kotlin now, but the functions are maybe named a little bit differently. But I feel like a lot of the concepts kind of transfer over. How did that feel for you folks?
Kind of similar, yeah. We even found a great blog post somewhere on the internet with a dictionary of React to compose terms, how to convert familiar React constructs to their compose counterparts. I like the approach of stateless functions that produce the UI, and we already did this in React, so the transition was very natural for us.
All right, I think that's really exciting to hear, because that means that, people who are maybe currently building web applications or like Electron applications, it might lower their barrier of entry to say, hey, if you want to get a native user interface, getting something rendered with Compose, it's going to feel very natural. You're just going to have to learn vocabulary much more than grammar or new concepts. So the fact that translates over, I think, is pretty neat. In regards to the user interfaces and kind of the designs that you had there, beforehand you had a pre-made library, right, of components called Ring UI. And how did you end up migrating your user interface over to Compose as well? Could you just expand a little on that?
Compose comes from Android initially, and there is a material design framework for Android and its implementation as a library for Compose. So it provides all the widgets like buttons, checkboxes, and so on. And we started using it just to kickstart the project and to make it running. But then we gradually rewrite. I think right now we have rewritten every component into our own implementation, because material library is very opinionated. They target mobile devices in the first place. So, for example, it dictates that every element must have a minimal size, because otherwise you won't be able to tap a button with your finger. And these sizes are quite different for mobile and desktop. On desktop, you can have much smaller buttons just fine. So we decided to rewrite everything, and we are hoping that at some time we could open source our library with the desktop like widgets, which will provide the functionality that targets desktop in the first place. So, as I said, with the sizes of elements, and also with the features like hovering. You cannot hover a button on your mobile phone, or at least it's not detected. But on desktop, it's usual when you hover some element, your cursor changes. Again, another thing that doesn't exist on mobile, or the element is highlighted. So all these things we needed to re-implement by ourselves.
And apart from that, would you say that the transition from, well, I suppose CSS style sheets to compose attributes and modifiers was a rather straightforward one, or is there kind of a difference in approach between those two layout engines?
Yeah, they indeed have a very different approach, and Compose basically provides you with the rows and columns of elements, so you can stack them vertically or horizontally. And in fact, it's enough to build a good-looking interface in most cases. And with paddings, for example, it's also greatly simplified. You don't have two padding and margin, two entities. You have only paddings, and then you just stack them in the right order. So it is a bit different with you need to get used to use these modifiers in Compose, but that's not the thing that blocks you at whatever moment. So you just get used to it in a few weeks, and then it feels very naturally.
So, Victor, I see that the sun is shining on you, which you know what it means. It means it's time for us to wrap this up, because otherwise you're going to melt. Living in Munich, I know that you're not accustomed to such sun. So beautiful segue, right? Right? Exactly. Segue. Right. So what's next for Toolbox?
Oh, great question. We have a lot of plans. We have a lot of plans, and I'm not sure what can I talk about. But we are working on providing better integration with the operating system, and to better install and integrate the tools we install. We're also working on integration with the other JetBrains tools. We're also helping Compose team to get the framework released. So we still provide a lot of feedback to them, and I hope we are helping them on this journey. As I said, we are thinking about open sourcing part of the library to provide desktop widgets for everyone who wants to start their Compose for desktop application.
Yeah, and I think you really raised a good point that I think it's worth reminding everyone on before we go, which is there is this impression that the JVM is not performant, and it is, right? You know, the folks normally, especially folks that haven't worked with Java or the JVM or any of the JVM languages, they have this bias towards, oh, the JVM is old and clunky and Java applications are old and clunky. They're so not. They're so not. But anyway, how many users do you actually have right now for Toolbox? Do you have a rough number you could share?
1 million. 1 million monthly active users.
Wow, that is cool. That is very, very cool. So let's come back to this in a year, and let's make sure that hits about 2 to 4 million, anywhere between that, right? Nice little target there. But yeah, it was great having you on the show, Victor. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
Seb, you want to roll us out with all the shebang of the bing bong ding dang dong stuff?
Of course. I mean, at this point, you would think that people already know what to do, right? Which is like, subscribe, hit the bell, leave comments, positive mostly, hopefully. I know we've had a discussion about that previously, and I guess Hadi is going to play us out. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'll play you out. No. One day I will play you out, but not today.
Wow, you're such a tease. All right. Well, with
but
that,
I'll sing yesterday. All my troubles seem so far away. Right, until next time.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.